What is going on, everyone? Paintball question time. Let's kick this off with David Lowe asked, Locklids versus PF pods versus alpha pods. Let's say first that the die Locklids and the Virtue PF pods, at least in the 165 round configuration, are higher capacity than the die alpha pod. So I like the alpha pods. So I don't really like those locking lid style pods. What are the Virtue pods? Are $6.50 each. The Locklids are $6 each, I believe. So I like the cheaper ones. I like the alpha pods that are $2.50, and they're made really well. So they're super durable. They seem like they're gonna last forever. So I don't really like those locking lid style pods like the Virtue pods or the die Locklids. They're just expensive. I mean, the Locklids are $6 a piece, and the Virtue pods are $6.50. I think $6.50 sounds right. So I like the alpha pod. It's cheaper. It's just as durable. It's gonna last you just as long. And I'm always losing pods. I always break them. I feel stepping on them, or I just forget where I put them and lose them. So I like the $2.50 price of the alpha pod. And they all kind of hold about the same amount of paint. I know the Locklid's a little more. The Locklid holds 160. The PF pod holds 165. But even the alpha pod holds 150, so it's more than typical pod at 140. Yeah, I like the value of the alpha pod over the Locklid and the PF pods. What if Fox asked, I think that's a username. I hope so. I hope your parents didn't name you that. We'll go with its username. I picked up an Azodin Blitz 3. I've used it a lot. I've thought about picking up an Empire Mini GS. Is it worth it? Yeah. So the GS is going to be, I think, built better, more reliable, quieter, kick less, more air efficient, easier on paint. I mean, all around it's better. It's more expensive, but it's definitely a better gun. It seems like probably the next logical step up in performance, at least. There's also the new ETHA coming out, the ETHA 2, and the Empire Axe, which are all kind of in that $400, $300 price. So if you're not in a super hurry, wait a couple months, kind of see what happens. Yeah, you might like the Axe a little bit more, the ETHA or the Mini GS. So those are three very good guns. I always say that it's a good idea, if you can, go to a paintball store. Go hold the things, because they're probably going to feel quite a bit different. The Mini GS is certainly going to feel a lot smaller. Your hands are going to be a lot more cramped than they would be with the Empire Axe, or the ETHA, or for that matter, the Blitz 3. So go feel them, because I think feel has a lot to do with, preference and what you might like. So in other words, it's worth buying the GS. Steven Sanchez, Gtek160r or Shocker RSX? That's a very common question, because they're similar in price, right? So which one's better? I for sure like the 160R. I think the 160R is one of the better paintball guns out right now. I'm not a fan of the RSX though. I never really have been. I hate the way it feels. It's just so small. Like the foregrip's teeny. Even when you put like the rubber grip stuff on the front of it, it's still really small. The trigger frame's still really small. So I like, the ergonomics definitely of the 160R over the RSX. I also think that the 160R is going to be much more reliable than the RSX. It's just built better. I think it's more simple. So in the long run, reliability and ergonomics are going to win over, for me, on pretty much anything. It doesn't matter what it is. A gun could be quieter and kick less and all this other stuff, but if it's not reliable and doesn't feel good in my hands, I'm not picking it, and I wouldn't like it. So to me, 160R, more reliable and ergonomically feels better in my hands. Tuomaala? I think I'm pronouncing that right. If I didn't, sorry. What is more practical, Spire 3 paint indicator, Evoke, or EVS HUD? To me, none of them, right? Like, I'm never gonna have an Evoke thing in my goggles. I'm never gonna have the HUD. And the Spire 3, like, the first thing I would do getting a Spire 3 is turn that low paint indicator off. Yeah, so I'm not a fan of any of it. I don't like the EVS HUD, I don't like the die Evoke, and I don't like the low paint indicator on the Spire 3. Or the R2, because the R2 does have that low paint indication thing as well. I just want to play paintball, and I want to like figure stuff out for myself. Say, I don't want my hopper to tell me when I'm low on paint. I don't want the like HUD to be able to tell me where all my teammates are. And the Evoke, I need a game timer. I don't need to know how much air I have left or paint consumption or any of that stuff. It just doesn't seem useful for me. And it's weird how you have to have like all the other equipment. Like at some point with the HUD, you're gonna have to have an EVS and maybe an Empire's new hopper or GI's new hopper. At some point it'll work together, and then it'll at some point work with the high-end gun. So you gotta have the mask, hopper, and gun for it all to work, and the HUD. So I mean, you know, like $2,500 worth of stuff or something just to make it work. Same with the Evoke. I mean, you gotta have the Evoke, you gotta have a dye mask, and you gotta have a dye gun. I guess I'm just old school, you know. I've been playing paintball for a long time, so I want that, or I don't need that per se other information. I do see how it could be cool. Like, it would be neat and like fun, maybe novelty for a while if everyone had the HUD and you could like see where your teammates were on specific maps and stuff, but I don't know. It's not for me. Maybe for you, but not me. So I feel like that was kind of short. I answered questions quickly, and only 4 of them? But for you 4, I hope that was helpful, and maybe some other people who are sort of having the same questions. If you have more though, please leave them in a comment below, and I'll answer them, possibly next time. Let's use hashtag PBQT. Paintball question time is what this thing is going to be called from here on out. Into the future. We'll see you next Wednesday, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.